Hey guys, it's Black RB Ryan here, and today I'm going to be bringing you a bit of a different video that I've been wanting to make for a little bit. So if you don't know, I am a Stephen King collector. I've been a fan of his for forever now, and I've been collecting him for about 4 years now. And over those 4 years, I've acquired some items that I would call exceptionally valuable. And essentially what I want to do is just show them off a little bit. As you can see, I have about 5 different titles, and I'm going to go through each one and talk about them a little bit, show you what there is to see, and I'm going to be going from left to right. So without further ado, let's get started. Alright, so let's start off with the book that I'm sure the majority of you would want to see the most, and of course that is my hard copy of Rage. Now, I do have a video on my channel that goes into a lot more detail of the history and perspective of me buying this, and I'm pretty proud of that video, but essentially to summarize what I said, this was the first novel written by his pseudonym Richard Bachman. This book was published in 1977, and this is a first edition, as you can tell by the printing line. It's also got the price of $1.50. Here's what the book looks like. Here's the spine. It's kind of a worn spine. And then here's the back. I'm not going to go into what the book is about essentially, but if you know the story or are familiar with the history, then you know that this book isn't exactly the most, I guess, family friendly. It's kind of a controversial book. Definitely not as controversial as a lot of works, but bad enough for Stephen King to pull the book in the 90s, and that's essentially why it's so hard to find copies of the original. And you can only find this in a hard copy like this, or in the Bachman Books omnibus, and that would be the original edition, and not the new edition that has Rage taken out. As for pricing, I mean, the price is going to vary depending on where you look. I always found copies for it's going to sound crazy, but $1,000 to $10,000. And this was the lowest I was able to find it. I bought this book for $1,100 plus tax and shipping. And if you take a closer look, based on the state of this, you can probably see why the seller didn't want to price the book as high. That being said, it's still fairly solid. You know, I can open up the book, I can read through it. It's not gonna fall apart. One interesting detail I found, it's kind of a variant among the first editions of Rage, is that if you take a look at the copyright page, so this is what my copyright page looks like, but I found some copies online that their copyright page is arranged a little differently. It's not too differently that it really matters all that much, but it's just something I noticed. As for my thoughts on the work itself, I personally really like it. It's I would call it my second favorite Bachman book so far, next to The Long Walk. I just really like the approach of kind of telling the story from the main character's perspective. It's also a topic that we don't get a whole lot of fictional stories about, so it's kind of cool to dip my toes into this. And even though this was Stephen King's first novel that he wrote, not the first one that he published, but the first one that he wrote, I think the writing is fairly strong. It's way better than anything I could do, and King really tapped into some dark humor with this book, which I think works really well. And I've read through the story multiple times. I've personally never felt any violent tendencies. Of course, not everyone's gonna read the story the same, but it's just how I feel. Also, I'm not really involved with Stephen King communities, or I'm not subscribed to any social media platforms that cater to this. I don't know if their vendors would have any better prices for this book than what I've seen. I pretty much just buy locally or on eBay, and eBay definitely isn't the cheapest place to buy a copy of this book. So yeah, that's pretty much it as far as Rage goes. I think it'd be cool for the book to either go back into print or to have gotten a proper hardcover release. But with that, let's put this back and move on to the next one. Alright, so next up we're going to look at The Stand, and this is the original cut version from 1978. And the reason this book is valuable is because of rarity. Of course, you all know the complete and uncut version exists, and that was published in 1990, and ever since that happened, that became the definitive version, and the cut version was completely out of print. And to make matters worse, Doubleday & Co. sold their company to Bertelsmann in 1986, so that was pretty much over. Also, something I'm going to disclose immediately is that this hardcover right here is not a first edition. At the time I bought this, I didn't really care about getting a first edition. I just wanted something that looked like a first edition. It still took me a bit of searching to find one that wasn't just a book club edition, and even though this is a later printing, it still cost me a bit of a pretty penny. I paid around, is either $110 or $130 plus tax and shipping. But let's take a look at the book. I'm gonna skip right to the gutter code. You can see down in there. I think every Doubleday book came with a gutter code, and that would tell you when it was printed. So you can see it says BB50. The BB corresponds to the year 1986, and the 50 is the 50th week. So this book was published in the 50th week of 1986. And that is just at the end of the year. It should be the second week of December. Taking a closer look at the book, of course it's got the classic artwork. I think that's supposed to portray God fighting the devil, even though this character looks more like the Grim Reaper. So here's the spine, and here's the back. It's a bit of a book description. No barcode. They, of course, didn't have that yet. And I think this is King's only book. I could be wrong, but I think it's the only one that was published with deckled edges. And I will say that they do provide a nice aesthetic to the book. Open it up. Up there it says TS, that stands for The Stand, and it has a price of $19.95, obviously a bit higher than the original $12.95. And I think the $19.95 price stuck as soon as Doubleday hit the mid-80s. I don't think they ever went higher than that. Here's a bit more of a description that continues on the side next, just under the picture of Stephen King. And then flipping to the copyright page. You know, on a first edition, it would say first edition down here. Mine obviously doesn't, although I'm not entirely sure how the first edition is different from later printings. I'm sure you more educated collectors could tell me that. Also, taking a peek under the jacket. This is actually one of my favorite looking books. It has gold boards, and it is quarter bound in a black cloth. So I'll see down here it says Stephen King, The Stand, and Doubleday. Pretty sure this was supposed to be gold foil stamping. It's obviously pretty faded, which kind of sucks. And then the back is same as the front. Also, one thing about my copy that isn't that great was the binding. While the pages are still held together, it's completely separated from the spine. So when I was reading this, I tried to be pretty careful. Thankfully, no big damage ever happened. Speaking of damage, if you ever want to transport a hardcover, or I guess just even a paperback with you, I would recommend either going without the dust jacket or placing it in a more secure area, because when I would go to school with this, my backpack, there were way too many times where books I would bring would get bent, torn, or even scratched. So just keep that in mind if you ever want to take a book with you somewhere. You'll also notice that up here I do have the two paperbacks that Signet printed for the cut version. And I think these look pretty nice, and while they aren't particularly valuable, they are kind of rare because, like the cut version, they are out of print, and I don't think Signet did too many printings of these. Also, interestingly, I don't think there were an equal amount of printings for these. This one on the left, this is definitely the more common of the two. It's the kind it's the version I see all the time on eBay and in different collections. And this one, it features almost the same exact artwork, so somebody might get confused. I don't actually see too many of these floating around. Here's the side artwork. This one's obviously a bit more beat up. And then here's the back. So while they are pretty similar, they do have enough differences to be able to tell them apart. Yeah. I also bought this at a bookstore. It came with this huge scratch in it, which that was unfortunate, but figured it's here, so I might as well get it. Also, one interesting thing about the stand, and I'm talking all iterations, is the hardcover was published in 1978, but it's set in 1980, and these paperbacks were printed in 1980, but they update the time to be set in 1985, and the complete and uncut version was published in 1990, and I think the time it's set in is 1990, so they tried to make it contemporary. Taking a peek inside, I think these copies are both identical. I don't think there's really that much difference inside. If you're looking for a cheap way to read the book, I would definitely recommend the paperback over the hardcover, because even if you're just buying a book club edition, you're still going to dish out a hefty amount of money to buy this. Onto my thoughts of the work. Personally, I love The Stand. It's one of my favorite Stephen King books, and originally I saw the 1994 miniseries a couple times before getting around to reading the book, and I was just floored by it. The story is fantastic. The characters are so memorable, and the book just screams classic 70s, well, 50s to 70s post-apocalyptic horror. Although I will say the story itself is not technically horror because it combines so many different genres, and it seems more focused on being either a thriller or a character drama. Another thing you'll notice is this book is kind of long. The complete uncut version is King's longest book, and this the cut version, even though it is truncated by a few hundred pages, it still comes in at 823 pages. Although surprisingly, when I was reading this, I was able to flip through pretty fast. I don't really know why, it was just a page turner for me. So yeah, that was the cut version of The Stand, and let's go put it away and move on to the next title. Alright, next up we have the original Bachman Books Omnibus from 1985, and this was actually the first quote-unquote valuable book that I had gotten. And at the time, it didn't cost very much. I got this for $40 plus tax and shipping. Of course, nowadays, the Omnibus has become much more desirable, and you'd probably be lucky to find a copy that's under, I don't know, $60 to $80. Although the main drawback for this copy in particular is the front cover has fallen off. Actually, when I got this, it had already pretty much fallen off, and it was actually held together with tape. I've been meaning to do something about this for a while. My mind was either debating I could just glue this back together, or I could try to find a new copy. Although, despite this, it's it's still an original copy of the Bachman Books, and this particular copy is actually a first printing, which I thought was pretty cool. And of course, this has the first 4 Bachman books: Rage, The Long Walk, Roadwork, and The Running Man. Obviously, Rage being the most desirable story out of the 4. Also, something I found interesting was, even though the front cover is kind of beat up, and so is the back cover a little bit, the spine is actually almost pristine. Like, I was truly shocked. I'd yet to see a copy of this paperback that had a good spine. And even when I was reading this and like opening it up like that, the spine never cracked. So I was truly surprised and grateful. You can also see on the back, this apparently was used, and the original price was $9.95 US, which is crazy to think about now. This book, one nice thing about this book is it has an introduction called Why I Was Bachman, that kind of explains the backstory for Stephen King, probably with a touch of bitterness at being outed. This was published after King was outed as Bachman, but before each story, it actually includes the picture of the original artwork in black and white before getting to the actual story. And I thought that was a pretty nice callback. Here's The Long Walk. Couldn't really tell by this color tinting, but the original cover of The Long Walk was red. Here's Roadwork. I think that looks pretty sick. And then probably the second shortest book of this collection is The Running Man. So there's that. In case you're curious, this book comes in at 692 pages. Now, as of now, this is the only copy of the Bachman books I have. I still want to get the 2 Signet printings that were done, because I just think they look so cool, and I'd like to get an original hardcover and the Hotter edition. That's the new one without Rage. But other than that, I guess there's not too much to say. By now, it's kind of a history relic, and I wouldn't call it a piece of history, but it is a relic. It was the first time I read Rage, so I've got a soft spot for this. Also, you can probably tell the Bachman books and Stephen King is embossed, and in the right lighting, you can get this really nice contrast of this coppery silver. I don't know if I can get the right lighting on this, but trust me, it looks really cool in the right lighting. But yeah, let's go put this back and move on to the next title. Alright, and the next title is the beefiest one that I put up here. It is a hardcover of It, and unlike the last hardcover I showed you, this one actually is a first edition, first printing. I bought this locally at a used bookstore. I just got totally lucky that I found this. And the best part is I only paid 20 bucks for this. Looking on eBay, I found prices ranging from $40 to like $150. So getting this for 20 was an insane deal. And open it up. It's got the gray end papers, the jacket price of $22.95. Here's what the copyright page looks like. And then, of course, you get to the story, this classic beloved story. Here's a picture of Mr. King on the back, playing with his band. I don't remember what their band is called, but I do find them to be entertaining from the few videos I've seen. Here's the spine. Of course, it's got that classic It logo that the 1990 miniseries obviously borrowed from. Taking the jacket off. It's pretty dark, but also cool looking book. It's got dark gray boards and then this red foil stamping. It's reflective, it looks nice. It kind of reminds me of Redstone from Minecraft. And it's got a black cloth binding. Got more of the red foil stamping down here. still reflective. And yeah, this is also kind of a heavy book. It's kind of tricky to handle this with just one hand. Here's the page count of 1,138. A bit lower than the paperbacks that are printed now by Scribner of 1,157. And put this back in, and what makes the deal I got for this even better is this is in fairly good condition. Like, I don't see any problems with the jacket or the text block. The only thing that's really damaged, I guess, is the binding a little bit, but that's not too much to worry about. As for my thoughts on the work, it is my favorite Stephen King story out of all of the ones I've read. Granted, I have a feeling another title's gonna take that place probably soon, but as of now, this is still my favorite title just for the amount of imagination that went into this. Like, this story was what I'd call a stroke of genius. Also, the first time I heard of the story was from the 2017 movie, and I started reading the book before seeing that movie. Got a little bit into it, but the movie just propelled my involvement, my excitement. I watched the movie a few times. I watched the 1990 miniseries, and I just flipped through the book. And this is I think to this day, this is the only Stephen King novel I've read twice, aside from, I guess, Rage. And I saw It Chapter 2, and I thought that movie was good. Wasn't as good as the original, but I think it gets a little more hate than it really deserves. And of course, Pennywise the Dancing Clown is deservedly one of the most iconic horror monsters of all time. Although one thing I will say about this book, and that's if you're just starting to get into Stephen King, unless you're a hardcore horror fan who's fine with a lot of buildup, I wouldn't really recommend this book as the first book to start with. And that's mainly just because of how long it is. I'd probably recommend a shorter, thrilling novel. Personally, I think novels like Carrie, Misery, or Firestarter would be a better place to start. Or even novellas. The Mist is my favorite Stephen King novella of all time, and I think that'd be a good place to start also. But yeah, that's pretty much all there is to say, so let's go put this back and move on to the last title. Alright, now the last title I'm going to show you is the Green Mile serial novels, but it's not particularly the serial novels themselves that I'm excited about. What I'm really excited about is the slipcase that it came in. Obviously, none of this is particularly valuable money-wise, but where this does show value is rarity. The serial novels themselves, obviously nowadays, Green Mile is published in a complete serial novel. They kind of left these in the dust, but these aren't too expensive. I think you could buy each one individually for like $3, or you can buy them all together for like $20. But the majority of the deals I find don't actually come with a slipcase. I don't know if most vendors bought them individually, or if not all the collections were published with the slipcase. But yeah, finding this box here actually is a bit of a challenge, and honestly, it's something I would challenge most people with. If you think collecting the Green Mile is easy, I just got totally lucky and was able to find this locally. To take a closer look at the serial novels themselves, I'm gonna lay them out. Yeah. They are quite a bit different from each other color-wise. They all contrast. You can see it came in 6 parts. The Two Dead Girls, The Mouse on the Mile, Coffee's Hands, The Bad Death of Edouard Delacroix, Night Journey, and Coffee on the Mile. And these serial novels were my second experience reading through the book after seeing the movie. And these were pretty fun to flip through. All of these, except for Coffee on the Mile, were 90 pages. Coffee on the Mile came in at 138. It's a bit long. If it was its own story, I think it could qualify as a novella. And another thing I love is the sort of comic book style artwork that they all have. I mean, for some, it's a little minimal, like parts 2 and 3. It's kind of just looks like they sketched some shapes on there with shadows. But for these last 3, it's the artwork's actually quite detailed. Even Night Journey, it kind of just looks like a simple drawing, but there's a surprising amount of detail in these 2. Well, maybe not number 4, but part 6, that almost looks photorealistic. Another thing that makes these a little more valuable to me, I don't know if it would really change the market price at all, or if I were to sell these, but each of these, go to the copyright page, each of these novels are actually first printings. So I thought that was pretty cool. I don't know, I'm not aware of how many printings were done of these books, if at all, but it makes the collector side of me happy for all of these to be first editions. Although one interesting thing to note is for the 2 Dead Girls, the Stephen King and Green Mile are embossed and shiny, and for the rest of them they're all normal text. I don't really know why they did that. I don't know if it was a cost-saving thing. And another interesting stylistic choice is on the spines for most of these, the titles are written in yellow, but for part 4 and exclusively, the title is written in normal white text. Again, I don't know if that was a cost-saving or a space-saving thing, because part 4 does have the longest title out of them all. Taking a closer look at the slipcase, it's a pretty spiffy looking thing. There's the top and bottom. The front has combined artwork from Night Journey, The Mouse on the Mile, and The Bad Death of Edouard Delacroix. Here's the spine, picture of Stephen King, and then lists all the parts. And then the back has combined artwork from Coffee's Hands, The 2 Dead Girls, and The Mouse on the Mile. So yeah, there's that. As for thoughts on the work itself, I mean, The Green Mile is it's just such a beautifully tragic story. If you've never seen or read it, I can guarantee if you're not crying by the end, you're at least gonna get very emotional. In fact, the story might be emotionally overwhelming for some if you're kind of on the faint of heart side. Also, another cool thing kind of relating to the movie is Thomas Newman, who did the soundtrack for the movie, and it's a beautiful soundtrack. I think it's my favorite Thomas Newman score of all time. He actually took the titles of these and made them titles of songs. Probably the most notable of that is the song "Coffee on the Mile." Talking a little bit about money, again, I do want to emphasize that as far as monetary value goes, these items are not particularly valuable. I think you can buy each individual serial novel for like $3, or you can buy them all for like 20. And I mean, I think the slipcase is kind of just treated as an accessory. I've never seen anybody individually sell it, but I can't imagine it'd be that high. Where this comes into value is just the rarity. And while the serial novels themselves, I mean, they're kind of rare because they're not being published anymore. The slipcase definitely is a rare piece, and I'm very happy to have that in my collection. All right, I'm gonna put these back in. I'm gonna go put this back on the shelf, and that'll be it. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I do want to make more collection-based videos in the future, and I'll see you next time.